Hey, friends. Welcome back to Mixing Up Success, the podcast where we blend creativity, business, and the belief that you can build a thriving business that feels like you. Today's guest is someone who has truly helped me do just that. Alyssa, the creative force behind Little Spruce Design. Welcome, Alyssa.
Thanks for having me, Danny.
Alyssa has been helping with my marketing for about 6 months now. And honestly, she was the missing piece I didn't even know I needed. I had all these big ideas and next level goals, but I was buried in logistics. The schedules, the launches, the day-to-day details that keep a business running, but don't always leave room for the bigger vision. Bringing Alyssa's expertise in, even just a small amount, gave me the breathing room to see the bigger picture again. Her creativity and strategy have helped me refine my message and communicate my brand more clearly. And that clarity has changed everything. In this conversation, we're talking about design, branding, and authentic marketing. How to market what you believe in through visuals and storytelling. And we'll also dive into one of my favorite marketing truths. Sometimes the best strategy isn't doing more. It's partnering with the right people who can help you shine. Welcome, Alyssa.
Glad to be here, Danny.
So, Alyssa, tell us a little bit about your business backgrounds and your business, Little Spruce Design.
Okay. Well, I was actually thinking about it earlier this week and realizing design and storytelling have just been in my life like as long as I can remember. Like scrapbooking as a kid to doing the yearbook in high school. Like that's what led me to design in the first place. And then I got a design degree in visual branding and visual arts and ended up working for a bunch of different small businesses.
That's awesome. I was a scrapbooker too. And I still pull out my scrapbook and show my kids.
They're so fun to look at.
Yeah. My skills have advanced, I think, from my scrapbook years.
I know. It's nice to have something hands-on, though. Everything is digital now.
Yeah, I actually have a lot of guilt as a parent about the lack of print pictures that I have and the lack of books, because I grew up where your grandma made you a scrapbook pretty much of your life. And my kids, I think one of them joked about a print picture recently and was like, "Why is there a picture of me here?" And I was like, well, that's normal. That's what normal people do.
I know. You're not the only one. I think my kids' school pictures are the only printed ones we have right now.
I don't even buy the printed pictures. That's how bad I am. Well, scrapbooking is where it started. All right. Tell us a little bit about working with small businesses. What's your background there?
Yeah, well, I grew up in a really small town. So from an early age, I was just surrounded by lots of mom and pop shops
Nice.
and lots of small businesses. And my first few jobs were in the background of those, helping run their sales or be the face of the business. And also, being a dishwasher in a restaurant. And you learn so much working in a small business.
Yeah.
So when I graduated with my degree in design, I thought I was going to be like this big corporate marketer and designer.
Yeah.
And then I tried that out for a little while and realized I could not do it.
Okay.
If I did not believe in what I was selling, it was just really hard to do good work.
Yeah. Which is why I think you shine as a small business marketer. I can't express how much you thrive when it's something that lights you up.
Yeah, totally. And I think that's the thing about working with small businesses is you really get to see their passion and their vision and how they're truly trying to help, whether it's the community or fill a gap in the market.
Yeah.
There's just so much authenticity there that I love bringing to the front.
Yeah. And I find that in a lot of cases, a small business, they're not trying to get rich.
Oh, no. I do not go into small business trying to get rich.
They're trying to build a lifestyle
Totally.
that they love. And I think that's part of this podcast is that how do you create a business that allows you to thrive professionally and personally?
Yeah, that's a big deal. It's not just about the money, especially in small business. You may be putting in as many hours as you would at a corporate job, but you're loving what you're doing. You still have the flexibility to go pick up your kids when you need to or run doctor.
I think I've shared in previous episodes this season that I probably work 80 hours a week easily, but it doesn't feel like it. And there was a point in my corporate professional career where I was working 80 hours a week and I was dying. And while I'm doing that now, and there are definitely hard weeks, it doesn't feel like work all the time. And so much of it is so fun.
True.
So,
And you just get so much like connection through what you're building. I think that goes a long way.
to start with, I want to talk about authentic marketing and selling what you believe in. So, you brought up that very thing, talking about working with small businesses. And I think one of the things where small businesses shine is that they are selling things that they believe in. They're not just selling product to sell you product in most cases. I truly believe that selling something you believe in and that you're passionate about makes all the difference in the world. So, can you share a little bit about what authentic marketing means to you?
Yeah, I think to me, authentic marketing is just being true to your brand's visions and values. Your marketing doesn't just communicate a sale, it communicates your story and your passion and the like why and the how you're feeding that to your customers.
Yeah, I think a lot about that in cookie work because especially custom cookies. I mean, everything about business growth is like, you need to get out of custom cookie work. It's sucking up all your time. Da, 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 da. While I understand that, that is my existence. And that is that ability to share joy through cookies is really powerful. And because it's a custom thing, it's not about the cookie.
Right.
It's so much more than the cookie. I recently had to reach out to a customer who I happen to know, so I was able to text her. And I don't often do this because it takes up a lot of time in custom work, but I recently said, hey, I need a few more details because I don't know anything about this topic that I was decorating cookies for. And she said, oh, you can just do whatever. And I said, no, no, no. That is not what makes me the queen of custom cookie work. I need to know the details because when this person receives these cookies and sees the details, they're going to be like, oh my gosh, how did she know that?
Yes, I feel the same way in my work. Like if someone just gives you like the name of your business and they're like, make a logo, that is the hardest place to start from.
Yeah. Okay. So that actually leads me. If you're working on a logo, everybody says, I'm going to start a business and I'm going to market myself. And I did it. I was like, I'm going to start a business. I need a logo. First thing on the list. It seems to always be the first thing on the list.
Right.
And I get that. But what do you ask for when somebody's like, I need a logo? What do you ask them for?
So I actually have a really in-depth brand questionnaire that I send out to clients, and it covers everything from the name of your business, when you started, why you started, to just your vision and your mission, your short-term goals, your long-term goals, your audience, colors you love, colors you hate, brands you love, brands you hate. And so we like get into it.
Exactly. I love that because I have worked with people in the past that don't ask those kind of questions. When I first started, I didn't know that you needed that level of information. And I think I'm fortunate in that I'm naturally drawn to sharing a lot of that information without knowing that it's needed. But one of the things that I really think is vitally important for any business, and I think most businesses overlook it, is a mission, vision, and core values.
Great.
Because I feel like that becomes the guiding ship.
Totally. If you don't have that core mission and vision, then your messaging is going to fall short. Your visuals are going to fall short. And when you're in like the hard and thick of it, it's going to be hard to remember like why you're doing this.
Yeah, I actually just posted a reel this morning. I don't know if you saw it, Alyssa does a lot of my social media, but I do a lot of it too. And so together you get a lot.
Team effort.
But that being said, I was trying to think about like, okay, it's just another cookie flooding and it needs to have a little more behind it. And so I created like a hook that was like, how do I keep going in the busy time? Because I am in the midst of Cookie Monster season and my body hurts.
Right.
Like it's so much work. But when I think of that bigger mission and vision of what I'm building, it's like, let's get it done. Like power through. It's a phase. And that keeps me going. Okay, we got a little off topic there, but that's what happens here. All right. I want to ask you because I struggle with it as well. And it's just, I think it's hard for small businesses. How do we sell without feeling or sounding salesy? What recommendations do you have?
Yeah, I think most small businesses probably struggle with this to some degree, but I think it's hard to get caught up into the day-to-day things. And like, if you think bigger picture and remember your why did you start this business? Why did you make this product? Or how are you helping someone in your community? Then I think it doesn't come off as salesy. Going back to the authentic marketing, you're not just doing it to make a sale. Yes, sales are very important in small business. We all need sales. But if you're truly going back to why you started and who you serve and how your product genuinely helps someone, then it's going to come from like an authentic place.
Yeah. And our kids ran a lemonade stand together. Alyssa's kids subbed in when my kids were busy. And I felt like one of the best messages I gave the kids was simply saying, if you don't tell the world what you're doing and how to support it, they can't come by. And don't feel guilty.
Yeah, sometimes it's as simple as that. I think in a small business or running a small business, you are so in it that you are just used to everything you do and everything you sell. And sometimes you forget, like, not everybody knows that.
Yeah.
Like, I still have friends in the community that are like, I didn't know you do logos. Like,
Yeah.
and you just have to talk about it.
Yeah. I mean, it happens to me quite a bit. And I'm like, how do you not know I
Right.
make cookies?
You make like 40,000 cookies a year. How do people not know that?
It's just that you have to continuously tell people what you're doing.
And it doesn't have to be overly braggy or, you know, it's not like you need to wear a sign around. But if you're like, bring it up in conversation or, you know, someone's like, oh, I have a graduation party. I need something for. And you're like, oh, guess what? I make cookies.
Right. Yeah, that's great. I really appreciate that insight. The next topic I want to visit about is partnership marketing. And how do you find the right collaboration? My experience is that you do not have to do it all yourself. And you really do have to find the team and the people that align with your vision and your values and your overall business. And when you do find those people, when you find your people, it is the biggest game changer in your business. So, Alyssa, share your thoughts around collaborations and partnership and how it relates to marketing.
Yeah, I think collaborations can be a great way to uplevel your marketing as long as you are collaborating with someone who has the same vision and value as you do.
Yeah.
I think often today, like in the rat race of things, we just think we like need to collaborate with them or need to have this influencer tag our product and then everything will be great. But like it goes back to your like vision and values. Like if you're not staying true to your brand, then it's going to miss your target no matter who you collaborate with.
Yeah. And I think that's a good reminder about you do not and you cannot serve everyone.
True.
Not everyone is your target audience. It's not possible. You could try and you'll kill yourself trying.
Yeah. If you try to please everyone, you will please no one.
Yeah. So How can aligning with the right person, let's say it's a photographer or a designer or a retailer, how can that alignment become a marketing strategy?
Yeah, I think if you're collaborating with someone who has your shared values and vision, you get their expertise in their field, but also fresh eyes on your business. And they might say, like, oh, well, you're doing all of this, but did you actually think about doing XYZ? And you're like, oh, I had no idea that was an option, or no, I
Hmm.
hadn't thought about that. And so I think bringing in fresh eyes is always a good idea. You also get their audience and their credibility in their field, which is a big thing of collaboration and partnerships. Like, you're just doubling your reach and doubling your audience, and that goes a long way as a small business.
And when it's aligned with your mission and your values, it means that their audience is probably aligned with you too.
Yes.
So it's kind of a win-win.
Even if you have completely different businesses, if you
Mhm.
have some of the same like core values, you will still reach their customers.
So one thing I like to think about, and we've talked a lot about it, is as a small business owner, you don't have to be the face of your business. You have to authentically run your business. And I see that collaboration and partnerships can be a really great way to not have to put your own face publicly out there if you don't want to. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of pressure as a small business owner to be the face of your business all the time. But the fact is, some people just aren't comfortable with that or aren't good at that, but they still have great products or great businesses. So I think if you're one of the business owners that doesn't want to be the complete face of your business, that is okay. You just need to align your marketing and storytelling in a way that is still authentic to your brand.
Yeah, and oftentimes the right collaborations, in my experience, will keep you quite busy.
Yeah, well, take us, for example.
Yeah.
Uh, I don't like being the face of my business. And I struggle to show up on Instagram every day and talk about branding and marketing and my services.
Mhm.
But I really love community and
Mhm.
I love collaborating with people. So through our community, we met and
Yep.
like now you keep me plenty busy. And I've met lots of other great small businesses through you. So word of mouth and
Yeah.
community is also a great way to grow.
Yeah, and you've helped me. I mean, technically I run 3 businesses. I don't really say that, but I'm got my hands in 3 different businesses that my husband and I run, and you've helped me with all of them on different levels,
Yes.
and not all of them are super public, but it's been a great collaboration, and I think then my business connections too have in conversation, just word of mouth, have been like, "Oh, did you know Alyssa does this?" And I've been able to pass people to you for help.
Yeah, and that goes a long way. I don't think there's one way to run a business, and I think we get pressured into thinking there is or thinking we're always behind on like, "Oh, I have to show up and do this," or "I need this new app," or, stuff like that.
Yeah.
And if we like truly slow down and pause and think like, "Is this what I want for my business?" Then that question will probably be answered.
Yeah. And I mean, if you can figure out how to run a business without getting on social media every day, all the power to you because it really is a time suck in a lot of ways. And it's great. It's allowed so many people to grow and so many different things, but it's not a necessity.
No, it is not.
And especially if it doesn't align with you.
Yeah, there's lots of other platforms out there.
All right. I personally have thrived on collaborations and especially business collaborations. But just like we talked about, that not every person is going to be your target audience as a customer. That is also true with business collaboration. And you just have to give it a chance. You have to recognize that some are going to work and some aren't. And going into it knowing that if it aligns with your vision and your values, it's most likely going to work. So, again, going back to that kind of guiding star of mission, vision, and core values really helps when those collaborations and partnerships come up and make sure that they align with where you're going. I work with a number of small businesses on so many different levels. And many small businesses are kind of my team, or I see as my team, because I couldn't do what I do without them. Well, you're one of those. I couldn't keep up. I was buried in the day to day, the logistics. And since bringing you into my team and leaning on your expertise and your skills, I have been able to free my mind. And I'm sorry, it's kind of scary because we are going full speed ahead. But that's what it takes. It takes finding how to free yourself up for the creative process. Another big partnership of mine and a collaborator of mine is my photographer. And she and I collaborate on so many different levels, and we've been friends for a long time. But I think it comes back to we entered business together wanting to build a lifestyle for ourselves. That was what it was about. It was about being moms and building a life that allowed us the flexibility and the creative space. So I think finding collaborations is absolutely critical to small business success.
And you make a good point that first you have to know your like business basics and your values and your systems. I've worked with plenty of companies in the past who have tried to do something and their messaging is all over the place, their brand is all over the place, and it just becomes more of like a time suck for them and wasted money if you don't have that in place before collaborating. So I would say, like, if you're going to start to hire out some of your business, make sure that you have your basics and systems in place before you do.
Yeah, so I think that feeds into our next segment. And I want to talk a little bit about building a brand that feels like you. And we've touched on it. Like, you have to know what you're doing. But I mean, okay, going back to my original story, I wanted a teaching kitchen. That was what I wanted. I wanted a space where I could share my knowledge and honestly just get people connecting around food. That's what I wanted. And also, a lot of people don't know how to cook, and that's sad to me because it's really not that hard. So, anything I can do to help people feel confident in the kitchen is empowering to me. But I floundered around for a few years trying to figure out how to make a business work. And I've always loved baking, and I've always been passionate about baking. And, several friends were like, just sell some cookies. You're good at it. Just sell some. And so I did. I just woke up and I said, I mean, it was like December. And I was like, okay, on January 1st, I'm going to just take this business and I'm going to sell some cookies and I'm going to see what happens. So that's okay, right? Like, I look back and I think, well, maybe I got lucky, but I don't think it's luck. I think if I look back, I picked a product that was still all about connecting people and celebrating people around food. And I think, okay, well, I didn't have a clear mission of what I was going to do, but I think I kind of did, not knowing it, right? And then over time, I realized, oh, I got to refine this. I've got to really hone in on what I'm doing. I can't just wing it. But what would you tell somebody that's just getting started? What would you tell them on how to build a brand that feels like you?
That is a great question, Danny. I think we have touched on some of it a lot. I would say really think about the why of what you're doing. Like, your why was like connecting people through food.
Hmm.
And you thought that was going to be teaching cooking classes at first, but it ended up being cookies.
Yeah.
Um, and sometimes our businesses evolve. Like, we'll start one place and end up another, and that's great. But starting out, I think really getting your vision and mission clarified and just
Yeah.
repeating that to yourself over and over. And be willing to take risks and be willing to try different things. And like, not one way always works.
Okay. So you're going along, you've got this business and it's picking up momentum and you're like, all right, like I think I'm onto something. I mean, that's what happened with cookies is that orders started coming in and I thought I might be onto something. And when that first $10,000 in sales hits, you're like, hey, like I actually got something going here. This is exciting. Maybe I need to get my act together. Whatever it is that triggers it. When do you think about a rebrand or a refresh in your business?
Well, branding and visuals are one of the first things customers will see. So it's important that they align with your business. I think I can usually tell when a business needs a rebrand because their messaging is not hitting the mark, or, they're all over the place. They have 5 different fonts they use for no matter what. There's a lot to be said for consistency in branding, and people know you by your consistency. So even if you don't start out with the greatest logo, like, people might
Mhm.
recognize it, and then you can up level from there.
I'm glad that you brought that up because you recently or in the works of overhauling and refreshing Danny's Kitchen Shop website, which it needs it. Been on my list for a while, but it's low priority. And you brought it up saying like, "Hey, I think this could use a refresh." When I first built that website, I wasn't doing half the stuff I'm doing now, and I've never sat down to refresh. So that makes perfect sense. What you're saying is it's not aligning with
Mhm.
what's actually happening. And you can look at it and say, "Well, this doesn't feed people to the right spot, or it's not the right messaging or something." And you can say, all right, it's time for a refresh. What would you recommend for somebody that doesn't see it or doesn't know where to look? Because we get so caught up in our own businesses, right? Unfortunately, we know the ins and outs of our business, and we can't see always when the messaging's not spot on or when it's missing. So, what advice would you give somebody on how to have regular check ins?
That's a great question. I think having other eyes is very key. Like you're saying, like, you're in it all the time,
Hmm.
you're doing it, But like when I came to work for you, I was browsing around your website and I was like, but I don't understand. This isn't on here. And Danny does it all the time. And another way I think businesses can tell is if people are asking them the same questions over and over.
Good.
Like, everything about your business should be easily accessible on your website. It should answer all the questions. Like, that's the first place someone is gonna go.
Yeah,
So if you get the same questions a lot about pricing or delivery or does your product do this, like, it's probably not being clearly laid out in your
I
for
love
you.
that.
Yeah.
That's a great trigger. What questions did you get this week that could be answered by a little refresh on your
Yeah.
website?
If you're like, "This question is so annoying. Why do people keep asking me this?"
Yeah.
You're probably not actually telling them.
That's great. That's really great advice. I also think in some cases it's great when you can just have some friends or family look over it and give them the task of like what is not clear on this. And unfortunately sometimes friends and family don't want to hurt our feelings, so they're pretty nice usually, but it's a great starting spot.
Yeah, if you have someone you trust to be nicely critical, I would say have them go to all of your business pages, whether it's your website, your Instagram, your Facebook, and say, "If you knew nothing about my business, like, would this answer your questions?"
Perfect. Yeah, that's a great starting spot. What's your advice for business owners who feel stuck between the DIY and the hiring help? What do you say?
That's a tough one. It's a very tricky spot for all businesses to know when to hire out. I think the first thing you should do is do an audit of your time in your business.
Mhm.
Like, what things per week are you spending lots and lots of time and energy on that are taking away from the bigger picture and your bigger goals?
Perfect. Yeah, I think I really appreciate you saying that because in my own business, when I started really expanding and building my team, I realized, all right, I have tied myself to the bakery. Like that's a problem because I can't create more if I'm stuck baking. And so my first expansion was to put somebody in the bakery, right? And really realize there's a ton of pieces that are literally very kind of robotic and not a lot of creativity needs to go into it. It's a skill. And so that was my biggest investment for my business. And then as I went on, I spent about a year, 2 years kind of floundering around of what was the next jumping point in hiring out. And I hired several different people, and nothing just was maybe easy or worked quite as well. And that's okay. I learned a lot during that process, and nothing was like leaving my plate in that phase. Right. So you talk about time audit, and it was like, wait, I'm still doing all this stuff, but I'm trying to pay somebody else to do it, but it's still on my plate. This isn't working. And recognizing that early on is super critical.
Yes. I think you bring up a good point. Like, as a small business, hiring is much different than hiring corporately. It's not just about the work that they do. You're working so closely with someone. You need to truly be able to trust them and be able to let go of
Mhm.
what you are doing in
Mhm.
order for your business to grow and scale. Not only are you going to be looking at the work they do, but also how they do it. Are you constantly having to email them and ask for it? Are they emailing you a million questions and it's just creating more work for you? Finding like the personality
Mm.
that you can click with, I think is also a big key.
And then I want to share the piece that honestly kept me from finding the next person, because as a small business owner, we use so many tools. We use so many social media tools, and we have our websites, and we have our financial tools, and we have all of these different tools. And let's just use my content as an example. I have like 45,000 videos and pictures on my phone. I mean, in the cloud, not on my phone, but in the cloud. And they're not organized. And some are very personal and some are very business. Most is business, but then my kids are all in there. Right. And the idea of having to share that with somebody and or organize it to share with somebody was honestly very overwhelming, like very overwhelming. And I think that probably alone was months of me like, I don't need to hire anybody. It'll be fine. I don't need help with this. I'll manage. I'll manage. Because the idea of trying to organize that was like, oh no, like I've let this go too far. But the reality is you just have to pick a system. And so I reached out to hire you to take on some work. And in doing that, I had to feed you information. And it was for our summer stuff. And it was all organized, it was all set. I had a plan. I just had all of these things sitting on my phone that I needed to get to you. And, it really only took me a couple hours to actually sit down. And the first step I did was we agreed that you were going to take on some work for me. And then I had a deadline for myself. And I had to just sit down and scroll through and check the photos. Fast forward to where we are now, we've developed systems, right?
Yeah.
And we've figured out, we're still working on them. They're not perfect. Systems are ever evolving.
Yeah.
But for example, recently you ran a launch for me, and I woke up the next day and I thought, I don't really think I gave her adequate content for this to really tell the story. So I sat down, I literally dropped my kids off at school. I drove to my bakery. I sat in my car and I scrolled and clicked all the content that I'd been thinking about that we need for this launch. And I created a shared folder and I dumped it in there and I went to work. It took me 15 minutes, and then it took like another 15 minutes for it to actually load because it was 500 pictures and videos.
It was a lot.
But the message I'm trying to say is don't let those little roadblocks prevent you from collaborating or finding someone to help.
Yes. And you make a good point. Like, it doesn't have to be perfect to start. And you don't have to spend a million hours on it every week. Like, little chunks of consistency can go a long way.
Yeah, I think what really was intimidating for me is this launch that we just did. It started in 2022. And if I could sit down and go back, I can find that very first picture from 2022. And eventually I will, and we'll tell that story. But the point is that oftentimes, especially as you get further into your small business and when you're creating projects and you're developing things, that they aren't just a 1 month thing. I mean, these are things that oftentimes are rolling around in our heads for years before they come to
Yeah,
real life.
just like this podcast.
Yeah, that was 3 years in the making, and here we are. All right. Well, we've talked a lot about working, collaborating, branding, and I think if you can't tell, I think Alyssa and I are fairly aligned in what we believe in, and that we both truly believe that a brand starts with that mission, vision, and core values. And from there, that helps drive everything. It drives your collaborations, it drives all sorts of things in your business. And when you get to that point where you are able to collaborate, that's when the real growth happens, I think, for all of us.
Yeah, I agree, Danny. I think once you're able to collaborate and scale, you don't just have a job for yourself, but you have a business.
Yeah. As we wrap up, can you share with us your top 3 creative marketing tips for a small business?
Yes, it's hard to pick just 3 because there are a million. But if I had to pick my top 3 marketing tips, the first one would be lead with your why. Clarity builds confidence and connection. And if you go back to your values and your vision, then you will always hit the mark. Number 2 would be stay consistent. It doesn't always have to be perfect. You don't always have to know what you're doing. You don't have to use all the fancy apps all the time. But in your consistency, you will build trust with your audience. And then number 3 is invest in your visuals. Obviously, this is a big thing for me as a brand designer, but design is often the first impression that your customers or clients get of your business. So make sure that it aligns with your message.
I love those. I think they align a lot with how I've built my entire business. I've tried to stay very true to my why. My core why is really around building lifestyle and connecting people through food. And then that consistency is really important. I gave myself really clear guidelines on how to communicate and be consistent. And it started small. And as long as it was consistent, it was a once a month email, it was a once a week post, whatever it is, it was consistent. And it's grown from there to a lot of different things. But once you build that consistency and kind of get it in your rhythm, it's easy to add the next thing. And then your visuals. I love that you bring that up because I think, especially around small business, visual identity is so key. And I feel very fortunate in a lot of ways. One, that I collaborated very early on with a photographer, and my photographer has followed me for the last 7 years through my business. And to have that level of brand consistency in professional photography work, I think is unmatched. And I feel so lucky and fortunate to have that. And then I also leaned into just kind of a color scheme and loving my logo early on to where that guided the rest of my visuals around what we do. And over time, the whole brand guide and all the colors and the fonts and all the things. And then you came in and said, well, we got to refresh this and we got to add this and have brought it to a completely new level, which is really amazing. So thank you for sharing those tips. I really appreciate it. Where can our listeners learn more about you and your business?
The main place you can find me is at my website, littlesprucedesign.com. I'm also on Instagram at Little Spruce Design and Goods. But like I said, I'm not always the face of my business, so that one might be a little lacking. But I will answer you if you reach out.
Great. And I really want to say thank you. Thank you for coming on here. Thank you for being very authentic in what you do. And thank you for shining light on so many small businesses, because I think you're really a gem in our community to highlight so many amazing small businesses. And what I've learned in working with you is that in a small town, it's really amazing when you do find the people that believe in you and support you and bring you to the next level. And that's what you've done for me. And I really appreciate it.
Well, thank you, Danny. It's been a joy just working with you this past 6 months and learning so much from you and just helping bring our community together.
I hope this episode inspired you to look at marketing through a more creative and authentic lens. Not as another task to check off, but as an extension of your story and your values. Working with Alyssa has reminded me that growth often happens when we make space for support. You don't have to do it all. Sometimes the smartest move is finding a creative partner who helps you see what's possible. If you loved this conversation and you're ready to take your bakery or small business to the next level, make sure to check out the Business of Baking, my 6-week course designed to help you build a brand that not only sells, but truly connects. It's where we blend the strategy, systems, and storytelling that help your business rise. A huge thank you to Alyssa from Little Spruce Design for joining me today and for the magic she brings to small business branding. Until next time, keep mixing up your own version of success. And remember, when your story and visuals align, you don't just sell your product, you radiate your purpose.